Welcome to the worldwide headquarters and studios of all Dukes Sports Talk, where all Duquesne sports fans can unabashedly and fully indulge in everything Duquesne University sports. So, without further ado, let's get to it. And let's go Dukes!
Hey, Dukes Nation, welcome back to your favorite podcast / YouTube show. It is All Dukes Sports Talk. We're getting close to the end of the basketball season. We are at basically midterm week for the spring semester. So I'm not sure how much longer we'll be bringing this show to you, if we're going to keep this thing going in the summer or not, but I'll have to talk to my co-hosts about that. One thing you can do to ensure that we have the manpower, the energy, the resources to keep going is obviously to keep supporting us. So for those of you who like the podcast and like the show, please continue to like and share. Make sure you subscribe and get us some more subscribers, because we want to keep doing this show and put even more and more into it, maybe even year round. But we do got to talk about these hoop seasons that are nearing an end. And joining Rudy Longarini and Nick Frost and myself, Bob Healy III, today is none other than Rachel Zimmerman, although Duquesne basketball fans might remember her as Rachel Frederick. Rachel is the color commentator for Duquesne women's basketball right now, and during her playing days for the Ohio Bobcats and then later the Duquesne Dukes, Rachel, the Gibsonia native, played under Rachel Frederick. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us, and what a fun game it was yesterday on Senior Day when the Dukes took care of business against St. Louis.
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I love following you guys in this whole podcast and using this platform to just showcase Duquesne sports and what's happening with the programs. So really cool to be part of it today. Thank you so much. But yeah, yesterday was an emotional one, meaning, it was senior day, but they really came out strong and were dominating from the beginning and walked away with that win. Had a beautiful curtain call for those seniors, and it was a great game, great win for that team, and much needed, actually.
Rachel, you may have been born too early. You got, unfortunately, you had a Sonata year when you transferred from Ohio to Duquesne back in the off season before the 08-09, well, 07-08 season, when you had to join in Sonata year. I mean, if you had been just born a little bit later, you wouldn't have had to do that. But any regrets, anything that you would have changed? I mean, you love finishing as a Duke, I'm sure, but can you walk us through that process, what that was like for you, leaving the MAC, coming to the A10?
Yeah, I actually had a pretty successful career at Ohio and the MAC. I was freshman of the year back then. But my brother, a native from Pittsburgh, my brother was diagnosed with cancer after my sophomore year. And Susie McConnell Serio just landed the job as the new coach for Duquesne. So I thought, man, this is God in motion, putting the pieces together. I want to come home, because playing a D1 sport, you don't have that flexibility to come back and forth between college and home. So they encouraged me. They said, hey, if you want to do a hardship transfer and try to avoid that red shirt sitting out, you can do that. But I went that alternate route, and I actually graduated in 3.5 years with my communication degree. And then I had a year and a half with that transfer. So I went on and got my master's in education. So it really worked out for me. And I got to meet Tony through the process, and he's a Duke alum. And so Duquesne's really important to both of us. We actually ended up getting married up on the chapel there. So yeah, it's been a good process, but yeah, for sure. So much has changed since then. And Coach Burke gave me the opportunity to come and do color for the women's team. And it's like I fell in love with basketball and the program all over again.
Back-to-back 20 and 12 win seasons the Dukes were in 08-09 and 09-10. And what an exciting time that must have been on campus. That was Ron Everhart with the men's team, and that run that the Dukes made back then to almost make the NCAA playoffs on the men's side, and then you guys winning under the great Susie McConnell. Obviously, that was Dan Burt was an assistant then. So what a fun time that must have been to be on campus.
Yeah, for sure. Aaron Jackson led that pack for the men's team, and he was such a dynamic person and so fun to watch him play and to lead that program. That was a great time. And yeah, we were the first WNIT team for Duquesne, and I like to think that we started that foundation that Duquesne has built upon.
I'd have to agree with that. Did you have happen to meet Nick Frost? Did your guys' paths cross at all, or Nick, were you right after that?
Talk
No,
about getting
I started school in 2011, so I missed Rachel by literally a year.
Oh, Tony Zimmerman just made his way into
too
the
late.
picture. How you doing there, Tone?
Good. What's up, Ollie? How you doing?
Excellent, brother. We're gonna talk about Tony later, and his Hall of Fame career at Duquesne. Tony was one of my coaches when I started because I was a freshman in the fall of '01, and Tony had wrapped up his at least his college playing career by then. We're gonna ask Tony to share some memories of his time on campus too. And if anytime you want to jump in, Tone, about being a Dukes fan, I'm sure as you are and following these programs, you go right ahead. And I want to start with the women because we were lucky enough to have Rachel. Of course, we had our broadcast partner, Alex Panormius, last week. And I'm sure Tony remembers Alex calling his games as he did mine. But as far as the women's game yesterday goes, the ladies, as aforementioned, victors over St. Louis by an 84-72 score. And it was a really, really cool moment that I was able to catch, guys. I tried to make it down to the game in person. I was on campus yesterday, the 22nd. We are recording on Sunday, the February 23rd. But on my doctoral program class ran late. And so for the last 5 minutes of class, I flipped up my laptop, pretended like I was working, and I really was watching. And I couldn't hear the broadcast, but I got to see Megan leave the court, hug her cousin, and then kiss the D on her way out. And that had to just be so cool, Rachel. And then I want to get Rudy and Nick's thoughts on that too. But what that moment was like there.
Yeah, you nailed it on that curtain call to have her cousin in for her. The whole crowd stood up because she's a generational player and she deserves all of that accolades, especially in a time where she could have gone somewhere else for her fifth year. I think it speaks so much to her loyalty and commitment to this program, and her leadership ultimately. But I had the chance to travel with the team to go to Fordham this past week, which was an awesome experience just to get to know the girls a little bit more beyond the floor. And I was talking to Meg about that. I said, hey, what are you thinking? And she said she spoke with her brother and said, I want to show that same respect I have for the program because Arizona meant so much to TJ, who, we all know about TJ McConnell playing in the NBA, but he had a great career at Arizona. And she just wanted to do the same sentiment. So she had that plan. She said, I hope to have the opportunity to do it against St. Louis. If not, I'm definitely doing it at St. Bonnie. So it was a perfect way. The team played really well, came out strong, which was needed early on, dominated the first half. So it gave her that cushion to have that, pull that out from her pocket.
Before I go to you, Nick, and then Rudy, you hinted at it, Rachel, something you and I got to hear in the post-game presser. I happened to be there accidentally because I was meeting you to sign your copy of a book.
Exactly.
And when I was there, Bert had just come to the podium, so I decided to wait and Trey Staunch, the SID for the Duquesne women's basketball team, let me sit in on the presser. So I got to hear him answer some of Zach Weiss's questions, and I actually had a student there as well from the student media asking questions. And Dan did say what you had hinted at, Rachel, was that Megan could have left. She got plenty of offers from programs. Of course, this day and age, she could have gotten money to go the way that we saw Tess Myers, get some money to leave. And she has chosen to stay. You mentioned TJ. Now, ironically, of course, TJ left to go to Arizona. He even had to sit out a year. Megan would have not had to do any of that. So not to mention the money that TJ couldn't have had back then. So that had to be such a tough decision by her to stay here. And grace us honestly with these incredible memories that we're going to have from her. And something else we learned, of course, Rachel, yesterday from Dan is that she will absolutely have her number retired. Dan Bird has already mentioned that. So, boy, I can't wait till that ceremony. Nick, your thoughts on Megan, the team, the season, the game, all that?
Yeah, I don't know if just going into the year this is the season I expected, but yesterday was picturesque. Also, shout out to Gabby Hutchison, who had a career day on her senior day. And based off of how she talked about her time here, it seems like she, along with Yanni and Lauren Wasson last year, all kind of have said this feels like home. They're glad that they came here to end their careers here. It does kind of ring true that maybe some of the local talent will hear those thoughts and maybe make Duquesne a priority to come here first and see how it goes. Meg being able to stay here all 5 years of her career, and having we'll say top two. We won't split the details with Halede like we have in the past. Careers of all time as a Duquesne women's basketball player, and capping it off with a double the McConnell way. It was really special. I was able to see the second half. The first half I listened in actually to Zach Weiss's radio broadcast because he told me he was covering for St. Louis. So I got to listen to his talk as I was driving my kids from dance class to the game. And Zach had some great moments, so I did want to give him a shout out. He was super excited to do it. And I actually think that it'd be cool to have another team's person like join broadcast more often, because it was cool to see St. Louis give their take as to their players where they know so much more, and then Zach being able to share the Duquesne side of things on a broadcast. It gave some more, I think, education all around to anybody who was listening.
I did get to hear some clips. Zach did a great job. That was pretty cool. Rudy, so Megan's double-double this time included 11 assists. 11 assists. She didn't hit double digits in rebounds, but she filled the stat sheet like he usually does. 22 points, 11 assists, 7 boards, 3 steals. What else needs to be said?
Well, if you're asking me, I wasn't there, so I just watched the game on ESPN. And she is her typical self. Meg, she had I'm looking at the box score here. She and of course our girl Kiyako had 16. So that was essential. And Hutchinson, as you said, had a career game. So it was, they led throughout, wire to wire. And I envy you guys, because you're living there and I'm living in California. And so I don't get to see any of that, kissing the logo in center court and all that stuff. Maybe they showed it. I didn't see it on ESPN Plus, but yeah, I envy you guys. That's all I got to say. Because I wasn't there and I'm not there physically to enjoy the audiences and the basketball per se. I'm gonna have to bow out and acquiesce to you guys.
Well, speaking of crowds, Coach Burt hinted at Wednesday's crowd coming up, what that could be, because that could be like. Originally, the game coming up on Wednesday, the 26th, was scheduled for 6 p.m. It's an 11 a.m. tip-off Eastern time. So the Dukes will welcome rival St. Bonaventure for Education Day at the Cooper Fieldhouse, and that place will be loud and packed. It's a field trip day, a lot of young kids there. So even though it was senior day yesterday, Saturday the 22nd, there will be another home game for anybody to get a chance to go see Megan off, officially. So that game's coming up on the 26th. To rewind a little bit on the women's side before we move to the men's, the women did have that loss at Fordham on Wednesday the 19th by 3. And as Dan pointed out in his post game yesterday, the 22nd, they just shot better. They would have won that game. They missed, I think, what did he say, Rachel? Something like a dozen at least, 17.
Yeah, I want to say 16 layups, and these balls would go in and pop right out. It just wasn't their night.
Sometimes that stuff just happens, and Dan's reaction was they would rather have a win, but there's not really much you can take from it if you have a cold night shooting. I know, so I'm a Baldwin guy. I grew up in the city in Brookline, actually, but when I was in high school, I went to Baldwin. My kids go to Baldwin schools, and I was at the Baldwin game. Baldwin was the number 2 seed locally in boys basketball. They were playing the 15 seed, and they lost. And it was terrible. I mean, I felt terrible for these guys. They had lost only one senior from the year before, and they went to the Whippeal championship game in 6A. We dropped down to 5A. We have all these seniors, and we lose in the first round, but we just could not buy a bucket. And when it's single elimination, that could happen sometimes. So luckily we're not at that point yet with the Dukes where it's elimination time. The Duquesne ladies currently are sit at 8-8 in the conference, 17-10 overall. 8-8 trails Dayton at 9-7, UMass at 10-7, Rhode Island at 11-5, and that is Rhode Island's in 5th place. So the Dukes are kind of comfortably in that middle spot. They don't seem to be in danger of falling to the bottom 4. The highest team down there is George Washington at 4-12. So the Dukes are with only 2 conference games left. They're not going to have to do a play-in game. But looking at those standings officially, the Dukes can't reach the top 4 because they only have 8 wins, right? So they're in that mushy middle. That being said, I kind of wanted to get a sense, maybe let's go to Nick first, as to what the Dukes should be trying to do in their last 2 games this season. I mentioned Bonaventure on the 26th, and then they finish up March 1st at George Mason. What do you think the Dukes need to get? Mason, of course, a monster team at 23-4 overall. What do the Dukes need to do to shape up for the conference tournament? I'll go to Nick and then to Rachel.
Yeah, I think they need to solidify their rotation. I know, Dan, I think it was in the Fordham broadcast they alluded to that he has the first quarter scripted out for substitutions. But then beyond that, it kind of feels like it's a hot hand sort of situation as to who's getting more minutes, which can be good. It can be bad. It has kind of led to some slow starts in the first quarter, which, I mean, St. Louis was an exception to that. They started strong. Fordham was kind of sloppy on both sides, offensively at least. I think it was 4-4 about halfway through the first quarter. So if they can find the rotation that fits, where they're going to start off strong and try to rest Meg a little bit more, I think, to make sure that she's ready for the 4 games in 4 days that they're going to be hoping for. I don't think the wins necessarily matter. I think the biggest difference is going to be what jersey they're wearing at this point when they're playing against the same teams in the first couple days. So just similar things to what I've been saying all year, just finding themselves, not caring as much about the results and solidifying the rotation.
Rachel?
Yeah, Nick, I would totally agree. I think when they are playing their best ball, they can beat anybody. They have so many different defensive schemes to throw at those top tiered teams in the conference. But what I feel is when they play well, it's because they're working inside and out. They're attacking the hoop. They have an inside game presence, and then that really opens things up for them on that perimeter as well. So when they are not shooting well from outside, I mean, they're one of the top in the nation making threes per game. They're number 5 right now, 10 threes a game. But when you're not getting those threes and looks, it's really hard. And that's what happened to them against Fordham. And so find other ways to score, use that inside presence, get to the rim. Journey Kyaku can do it anytime she really wants. She is so quick and athletic. They are a little bit undersized, so use your physicality and a little bit of inexperience. These freshmen don't know what they don't know. So hopefully they don't, they'll just go out and ball out and do what they're asked to do going into A10 play.
So Richmond, guys, that they scare me. Obviously, I think Richmond is a tournament team. They're at least on the bubble. George Mason's arguably on the bubble as well. Being undersized worries me. I mean, seeing that Richmond game, it looked like everybody had a full head everywhere on us, on all 5 players. So I am worried about the size thing, and I also I'm seeing teams break our full court press. By spacing out and throwing deep passes. And so I'm looking forward to the counter punches on those and what the coaching staff's able to do to compete with those kind of teams. But I have seen this team in the early part of the season look unstoppable. They still play with relentless joy. They're still, at least they're a joy for me to watch. They never really are questioned, I don't think, on their level, their compete level. So, it should be a fun Atlantic 10 tournament. I'm hopeful the Dukes get a couple wins and maybe push themselves into at least NIT consideration. We'd all love to see them win the whole thing, of course, but that remains to be seen. So a lot left to be spoken about for women's basketball at Duquesne this season, again versus St. Bonaventure Wednesday, the 26th at 11 a.m. So that game's on Sportsnet Pittsburgh and ESPN Plus. Rachel, I'm assuming you're on the call.
Yeah, I'll be there. So tune in. Rudy, if you're listening, I'll do a good shout out for you.
All right. I appreciate it.
There you go.
No excuses now, buddy. And then finishing up at George Mason on Saturday the 1st, and then we'll wait to see what the seeds look like for the Atlantic 10 Championship, which will run from March 5th through March 9th in Henrico, if I'm saying that correctly, Virginia, the Henrico Sports and Event Center, where it's been recently. That is when the Atlantic 10 Championships will be held. So we'll see what happens with women's basketball, but we know for sure when it comes to the future for Megan McConnell, she will have her number retired, and that'll be a heck of an exciting day. We'll hopefully, we'll be able to do that and also celebrate the fact that she's in the WNBA by then and continue to make us all proud the way her brother TJ has been doing in the NBA. So let's move into men's basketball. And when I do that, I want to combine this with something I want to get Rachel's thoughts on, which, of course, is the name, image, and likeness ruling, rulings, decisions, what have you. There's so much news about this every day. But Rachel, I think you've been following this a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts based on things you've heard on this podcast and some reading you maybe have done as to, how this could affect Duquesne's women's team. We know for the men's teams, it's a beneficial ruling, right? Because there's not going to be any kind of a limit. They don't have to have equitable funding as far as NIL money going to players on the women's side. So your thoughts as a female athlete and someone so close to the women's program, what you think about these NIL decisions and rulings and conversations?
Yeah, it's so mind-blowing where we have come from women's sports and sports in general, how these amateur players are getting treated like professionals, and I totally understand why. But at the same time, I come from that era when you get a scholarship, you're getting a great education for free. That was everything to me, walking away with a great degree from Duquesne University and my master's at that time. So to know these girls can get extra money, I'm all for that. And absolutely, but it will really affect recruiting. I think if they cannot use those funds that other big five programs can use, and with all their boosters and things like that. So it's going to really put a lot of emphasis on the university and how they're going to shuffle their funds and make things work, because that's what's going to matter the most. Unfortunately, it comes down to money and who's going to be able to pay out.
Well, so our solicitor on this show, Nick Frost, he's been following this too, and has been giving us some sort of advice and trying to say to people, look, this hasn't really been decided yet, right, Nick? I mean, there's going to be challenges afoot here that might affect all this shaking out.
Yeah. So it's guidance given by the executive branch at this point, but somebody's going to challenge it. It's going to go to courts, and then judges are going to have to figure out who has to decide it. I don't think there's going to be many that want to have this on their docket for the myriad of reasons. But it's going to take a while before it's all ironed out. I think it'll still be, they'll find a way that'll work out for the Power 5 schools in football, but I can't see them completely diminishing the Title IX requirements for women's sports, which is the biggest concern at this point. I still think the scholarship requirements are going to have to stand, and then it's just going to be the gray period of how much NIL dollars can go to players that aren't on scholarship and things like that, because that would be the way around scholarship caps on all those sports.
So we're going to be in a holding pattern on this, like so many other things happening in college athletics these days. I do want to get to our men's basketball program, guys. The Dukes men's team, unfortunately, losers 70-63 yesterday, the 22nd, up in Olean, New York, against the Bonnies. That drops the Dukes to 11-16 overall and 6-8 in the Atlantic 10. The Dukes are not out of the woods in terms of falling into that bottom four and having to play an extra game in the A10 tournament. Last year, of course, the Dukes ended up in the middle, but won the whole thing. And it's really difficult. I'm not sure if it's ever happened in the A10, but don't quote me on that, where teams had to come from the bottom four and win the whole thing. So you want to stay out of that bottom four. The Dukes at 6-8 are only a half a game ahead of UMass, which is 6-9. And then below them is Richmond at 5-10, LaSalle 4-10, and Fordham at 3-11. The Dukes defeated Fordham in the prior game by a score 73-64. The Dukes looked pretty good, but they were at home, and frankly, guys, I think they should have took care of Fordham the way they did. The game at at Bonaventure, though, is disappointing because it was winnable. The Dukes outscored the Bonnies in the second half. They just could not get a bucket late. Rudy, did you have a chance to watch that one?
Yeah, man, they got as close as 60, 61. Then they I think they got outscored on a 12-3 run by St. Bonaventure. So it's disappointing. Our shooting woes continue. And Dinkins had a decent game. Crawford had a decent game. But then our outside shooters beyond that, Hornsky, uh, and Edwards particularly, even though Edwards got 10 rebounds, I mean, he went 1 from 7 from 3-point land. So, dude, when you live by the three, you die by the three. As Rachel was pointing out that we we're not top 5 in as far as the men's are concerned, getting up the 3-pointers, but we got to hit some. We hit 28% of our 3-pointers. I mean, you can't win a game like that.
Nick misses by Dinkins and two 3-point misses by Dinkins, followed by a miss of a 3 by Crawford, and then a miss of a 3 by Rozier, and then a miss of a 3 by Ronsky. All the 5 of them came with the Dukes down 3, which would have tied it. And then obviously, what happens is the Bonnies then make the next 3 and go up 66-60, and the game is pretty much over at that point. Anything similar to what Rudy said that you want to second or move on from, Nick?
Well, yeah, I did want to mention that we were short-handed. We had a limited bench this game with the amount of injuries that we had. And Rozier was out, I think partly due to foul trouble in the first half when the Bonnies really went on a run and got a lot of turnovers off of us that turned into fast break points. And I felt like he was really missed at that point. Dinkins was getting hard pressure on him, and they were basically challenging Crawford, and I think Ronsky was the other guard out there at that point to try to bring the ball up, and it wasn't looking great. So the value of Kareem really shined, I think, in the first half of this one. I understand he was on the floor for the final minutes where we just couldn't buy a bucket. And I think Netchus not being there also really hurt. One of the broadcasters pointed out that Wilborn was by far our best offensive big. And I mean, I guess that's true when Netchus isn't there. I never really thought of it this way, but Netchus is just our best all-around big. I think he's our best defensive big and our best offensive big. And him being out, Wilborn being in foul trouble. I don't think Dixon was in too much foul trouble.
Oh,
Barre,
he wasn't. He only had 1 foul, but yeah, man, I agree with you, dude. I mean, everything you just spouted off.
It was kind of impressive with all those things put together that we were actually in it at all towards the end of the game. But yeah, the ending minutes in that one kind of reminded me of Fordham, where Duquesne had a lot of opportunities. It was right there, and they just could not get the job done towards the end of there. Also, shout out to Johnny. He made the Jumbotron and got a lot of loud boos in Olean. So
yeah, they know Johnny Heller, the Bluff Blog Twitter guy up there in Olean. Yeah, he's a public enemy #1. So guys, it's funny. The Dukes, like I said, 6-8 and not out of the woods, falling into that bottom 4. But like Dayton's 8-6, and that's the number 4 seed right now. It's the Dukes have 4 conference games left. It's so funny. It's so crowded in the middle. I can't get a read on this team. Let's go to the Zimmermans, plural, since I see them both there. I want to talk to you guys, 2 long Duquesne fans, about what you like and don't like about the men's team this season. So Rachel and then Tony.
Well, just as far as that St. Bonaventure, I think it's habitual that we always split with St. Bonnie's and see them twice a year. So the fact that they won the first time, and then you got to play your best basketball on the road. And it just hurts a little bit whenever you beat them at home almost, I think it was 57-75 the last time the men played each other at the Coop. And then they go up to Aline and lose that one. That definitely hurts and stings. But again, in this conference, you got to be on your A game when you're on the road. But yeah, they're a young team and new leadership for sure. I really am rooting for them because that surge that the last year team gave everybody in the city as Duquesne fans, I really want to get back to that. And, obviously on the women's end as well. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the program and the university itself is really putting forth an effort to push athletics, to expand athletics. And I think they're doing a great job. And all the coaches and all the administration is doing a tremendous job with.
Yeah, we always are like, oh my gosh, these facilities now we're jealous of what these student athletes have exposure to. But I believe in that last St. Bonaventure game, there's a lot of milestones for the men's team, right? Dinkins got his 1,000. Edwards got his 500th rebound, and Regier got his 250th assist. So, it wasn't the wins that they want, but some pretty impressive milestones for a couple of those players.
Rachel, you mentioned the team not having many road wins. 1-7. That really scares me. The Dukes are 1-7 on the road this year. Guys, I honestly, I don't even recall the game they won on the road. Was it even a conference game? I can't even quite remember. So the Dukes, they had one win on the road was at George Washington back on January 15th.
That's the Max Edwards revenge game.
That was exactly right. Yeah. It worries me a lot that the Dukes can't win on the road. And when you go to the Atlantic 10 Championship Tournament in DC this year, March 12th through March 15th, I mean, you're not playing at home. It's nice that they're competitive at home. I mean, the Dukes are 8-6 at home, thank goodness. They're 2-3 in neutral site games, so we'll be that'll be a neutral site, of course. But that's not a good trend. This is, the A10 tournament's going to make their season. That's obvious. There's no postseason in their future otherwise for any of these strange tournaments that pop up every year. The Dukes, for them to even finish with a winning record, are going to have to finish strong and then play well in the tournament. The Dukes, again, sitting at 11-16 overall, go to LaSalle on Wednesday the 26th at 6:30 p.m. For another A10 conference game. And then the Dukes return home on March 1st. It's a Saturday against George Mason at 2 p.m. That game can be seen on Sportsnet Pittsburgh and ESPN+. And then we'll have another show for you guys at that point. Are there any other thoughts on the men's team, guys, before I move into football and talk to Tony a bit?
I do want to say this. Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys, let's broach the subject of DeMichael again. I mean, he's not going to come back this season. Do you foresee him coming back? Should he come back? I think he should redshirt.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough time left for him to really get into the swing of things at this point. I did want to say, despite our record, I think we're still probably a top half of the A10 conference talent-wise, where I'd still be confident in our chances of winning a game or two, depending on where we are in the A10 tournament. VCU, George Mason, Dayton, St. Joe's, St. Louis, I'd all put ahead of us, and then Loyola based off of conference record. But I think we're better than GW, St. Bonaventure, Rhode Island, Davidson, UMass, Richmond, LaSalle, Fordham. If we play well, not even our best game, we should be beating those teams. So despite our record and very, very strong inconsistency this season, I still think we could make it at least to the second or third game in the A10 tournament.
Rachel and Tony, you guys understand the DeMichael situation. The guy has been out since, basically non-conference season, and he if he comes back now, he's going to play a handful of games and maybe ruin a redshirt season. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. Personally, I don't believe the team is a winner this year, just based on what I've seen. So I would save DeMichael, but I'm going to get your guys' opinion on that.
For me, DeMichael's story, I really like it. Last year, coming on and not being a scholarship player, having the opportunity to have that scholarship this year, and not so much have the opportunity to get on the playing court because of injuries. It makes sense. Why not give him that red shirt and make up for, that scholarship year he never got when he first came to the Bluff? But he's a great kid. I did a radio show with him and Tim Bentz once, and I was just really impressed with his ability to speak about his team and the experience that he's had. And just, it was really nice to get to meet him. And, you hope nothing but the best for all these kids.
Yeah, I mean, in my world, I transferred to Duquesne, and I was before the portal, so I had to drop from a D1 to a lower level or to play. But I played as a freshman. They played me and said, "Listen, we're leaving." Johnny Majors is like, "I'm leaving, so we're going to play you." And I played on some, just scrap up time, but the ability to get some understanding of what the game is in college compared to what it was in high school, it mattered. But I'm not sure that it matters in this situation. If there's only a couple games left, you're not going to learn anything. And I redshirted with the next system that came in, the next coach that came in. But no, I would sit him and just let him heal up and just go forward.
In the few games he played, he was averaging 10 plus points. That's definitely needed. But yeah, being out for so long, I don't know if he can get back on the horse that fast and contribute that much.
Yeah, this gives me a chance to then talk about Tony a little bit here. So thanks for jumping in on this, Tony. Tony was Duquesne's quarterback from 98 to 2000, passed for over 7,000 yards, over 70 touchdowns, and then went on to a very good career in arena professional football. And, and according to your bio in the Duquesne Sports Hall of Fame write-up from GoDuquesne.com, 14 school records while you were at Duquesne, and also including he had the highest touchdown pass percentage in all of 1AA. So you were a big deal when we got you to come to Duquesne. That was a great transfer for us. We're kind of looking this year, Duquesne is, as they are always, another quarterback to maybe even transfer in and play, but it doesn't seem like that's in the cards this year. I haven't seen that. I don't know if you have. I think the Dukes are going to fill the quarterback position from within, or one of these, students who came in to start spring as a gray shirt. You hearing anything about Duquesne quarterback wise?
I don't want to spill the guts, but I've talked to Anthony Doria, and Anthony is a friend of mine, and I know that the landscape of college football is so different anymore. For me, transferring in was from a big to a small, or big to a Division I AA, whatever it is. Now they play 4 colleges in 4 years.
Yeah.
Major college sports. So in the NILs and all this stuff, it all changes the landscape. And I just heard, who did I hear? Somebody, one of the, he was saying, like, I'm not even going to recruit.
Rick Pitino. Did you see that one? Rick
Yeah.
Pitino's talking about his incoming recruiting class. He's like, I'm not even thinking about freshmen when I can get college players.
Yeah. So that's difficult,
thing,
in how to manage this. And Jerry and Anthony and the whole staff, and it's just it's a tremendous feat to navigate. And I think they're doing a great job. I think they've produced some great teams, great talent, local and using the portal. I think they're in a good way, and in good leadership.
So, Tony, I'm assuming since you finished your career at Duquesne and coached for us that the city game coming up, you're not going to have split interests there.
I am not going to have split interest, but I'm going to have a hell of a tailgate.
Yeah, attaboy, yeah, good. I'll try to find you. Yeah, I'll be at that one too. Yeah, of course, Tony transferring from Pitt to come to Duquesne, their loss. Tony, you're to the last 2 seasons you played at Duquesne, conference championship seasons, and those 2 years, 99 and 2000, that started a run for the Dukes that arguably is still happening, right? The Dukes have won conference titles since 99. Well, they won in 99 and 2000. I came in, we went 4 years in a row, had never lost a conference game, just like you guys, from 01 to 04. Jerry Schmidt comes in. They win the conference 3 more times. The conference winning streak came to an end, unfortunately, but what a run it was in the MAC for the Dukes. And it's continued a bit, not quite as, incredible dynastic as it was in the MAC, but, you were a huge part of that, Greg Gattuso, of course. And, I know personally, like I take a lot of pride in knowing that, we just never lost conference games. And, we're a part of that, the longest conference winning streak in FCS history. But you guys started that in 99. Do you have any great memories that stand out for you from your playing days on the Bluff?
Well, yeah, I think you said it,
Well, hang on a second. Somehow hey, Tony, start that over, would you? Because I think something got muted for a second, maybe. I was asking you about great memories on the Bluff, and you said?
Yeah, I just think, like you said, there was pride in not losing to conference people. And, we played the Bucknells and we played these other teams, which I think right now what Duquesne is doing, I think they're very successful with beating these out. They're playing Texas A&M or TCU. They're playing Florida State, Boston College. They're playing heads and tails, great competition, and they're competing and they're winning in some of the Ohio games. So, but, just eventually, I think the mentality has changed in the world where, like when Greg was there, we knew that we could not lose to Fairfield. We could not lose to these teams because we just had to win. And I think the ability to understand and how you work to not lose matters. And it shows when you have a winning streak, as I did and you guys did and beyond.
Yeah, it meant a lot to us that we were a terror in that conference. You and I shared a lot of teammates because we just missed each other, and guys like Richard Greer, and Rob Bowser,
Country.
There we go.
a big country, and I was his backup. Then I became the right guard after Greer. But those guys impressed upon me. And Dave Loya was one of our coaches by then. He was the other great quarterback that came before you. But that run we had with Loya to Zimmerman to Lobig, I mean, it was just like 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row, and it was very clear that losing a conference game was not acceptable. And by the time that I was done being a senior there, Tony, we didn't even celebrate conference championships anymore. It was nothing. It was ho-hum. We barely, where's the trophy? Because we had bigger fish to fry all the time, winning those out of conference games that set the stage for what we have now. I mean, we were excited to beat Lafayette, in 2002. We were excited to beat Bucknell, or to go on the road to beat Holy Cross my senior year and pound them on TV up there. That was really big for us. And, but, guys like you and Loya, and those who were on those early FCS teams winning titles, that set the stage for where the program is now. And now obviously they want to win the NEC, but the out of conference games they're playing now, if we just compete with Pitt, we'll be overjoyed, because it's really about having a payday.
I'm on the record right now, 17-13 winner by the Dukes.
Oh God. Imagine. That would be fun.
We got to get a quarterback. I don't know who they got, but we'll find out.
Yeah, that's right. But
If
so
not,
there is
these are last year. I'm sure that we could pull a COVID year for us, right?
Yeah. Is it too late? Is it too late for COVID years?
I can't get out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens to us eventually. So guys, I want to talk about one of the Olympic non-revenue sports. Now, I promised we're going to get to women's lacrosse, which has started its spring season. So we will get to them. But the women's swimming and diving program has finished the Atlantic 10 Conference Championships. The final day of the conference championships was today. I'm sorry, yesterday. The Duquesne ladies, the only swimming team we have are the Duquesne ladies, finished third at the Atlantic 10 Championships. And big highlight was a freshman, Ashley Friel. She earned the conference's most outstanding rookie award. So shout out to Ashley Friel. She was on the podium 3 times, including a championship, 100-yard butterfly. She was one of 3 Dukes to win titles at the Atlantic 10 Championships this year. So it was Friel on the 100-yard fly. The 200-yard freestyle was Orla Egan, and Haley Scholler defends her 200-yard backstroke championship. So back-to-back for Scholler. She was the first athlete, non-basketball or football, that we mentioned when we started this podcast. Haley, of course, having recently competed at the Olympic trials for the Duquesne Dukes. So pretty cool, to finish third. That's saying a lot that you're in the upper echelon of the conference there. You got a chance to talk to Dave Sheets, the head coach, I think, Rachel, right? And what did he have to say?
Yeah, I reached out to him today, just knowing that I was going to be on the podcast. Now, I don't know much about swimming, so I asked him for a quick swimming lesson, right, about what's going on. And he was great. He said, you absolutely owe him some time on this podcast, because he said he gave you some swim time when you were doing a competition. Is that right?
Yeah, he did. I have to, when I was competing in the transplant games, okay, I'll get back to your point, but yeah, so Dave, I went into the pool and I asked Dave Sheets, the head coach, I said, look, I was at the transplant games in San Diego. This was 2 years ago. I was competing in track and field and pickleball there. And I had a great meet. I had the farthest long jump. I had the farthest shot put. I had the farthest discus. And I set the national records in shot and disc at that meet. And but this is no joke. I was sitting on the pool deck and I was going to do a swim as well. What the hell? And a guy had a heart attack right before my heat. And an older gentleman, we talk high alert at a transplant games. A lot of us, so I'm a donor, but a lot of people who were competing were recipients. And, he almost died. And so they just canceled the rest of the swim meet.
Wow.
So they told us to go record some times, get them authenticated, and videotape it and, record the time. So I had Coach Sheets officiate and keep my time for me in the pool. And I got on there to jump in. I looked at him. I looked at the records on the wall and I said, you're not going to have to update any of these pool records. I'll tell you that right now. And I went in the water and I ended up finishing like second or something in my age group for swimming. But that was nice of him to do that. So you're right. I do owe him time on the podcast. So you were saying about the team and the program, as Dave Sheets told you.
Yeah. So he was we found out we're both from the same hometown and had some good, easy connections there. But his daughters are playing. I don't know if am I good? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
His daughters are in state championships right now for their high school swim meet team, and his son is swimming for the Queen. So swimming is in his blood. He said he married an all-American swimmer too, but he just expressed this group of girls he's coached this year has been probably his most favorite group in over 8 years. And he really attributes it to those seniors and that they've bought into the culture and everything that they've possessed for them. He couldn't be more proud. He was telling me about the 13 podiums, 42 personal records, and the 7 school records that were done over this past weekend for his team. So really kudos. 5 of their swimmers made it to the NCAA B cuts, which is really impressive when he was explaining to us how important that is.
So the women's swimming and diving season is not quite over yet. The NCAA diving zone competition, so I guess they're breaking them up into different zones around the country. Those will take place March 11th through the 13th. The program does have divers now. The College Swimming and Diving Coaches Association of America has a competition from March 13th through the 15th. Those competitions late in the season, I know this from having done track, they're kind of a chance, honestly, after conference time before nationals to sort of maybe hit some marks to see if you can qualify. So I'm assuming that's what that CSCAA meet's going to largely be about.
Yeah, the way he explained it to me, he's like, it's the NIT of basketball for swimming, right? So it's your like last chance. And he really believes that they can make a splash literally and figuratively in the pool for the team. And cool. He couldn't speak enough about his seniors, and the freshmen have learned so much. Like you said, Ashley Friel has learned so much about what it is to be a Duquesne swimmer from those seniors. So we had a great conversation. We also talked about, was it Christina Nealon that was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. Tony and I were at that banquet and really enjoyed her outlook on being an athlete, swimmer throughout her collegiate career, and just how it applies to her life. Like, I can do anything for 4 years. I can do anything. I can do a nursing shift for 12 hours. And then she said, I can even be a mom for 18 years because of what swimming and athletics has taught her.
That's cool. Thanks for bringing up Christina Nielsen, maiden name Christina Sherrard. So
Yes.
she went into the Hall of Fame as Christina Sherrard Nielsen. She had quite a career at Duquesne. So yeah, she's part of the most recent Hall of Fame class. She won the 50-yard free and 100-yard free in the 2009 Atlantic 10 championship. So she was a contemporary of yours, Rachel. And she was also part of a relay that also finished first. So at the Atlantic 10s 1 year. Another swimmer who went into the Hall of Fame at this year's class was one of the men's swimmers, Scott Darwin. He competed from 03 to 07. He had 15 podiums, including 5 golds for the Atlantic 10 championship meets. Did Scott Darwin. So yeah, cool for swimming and diving at Duquesne. They there's a cool Wikipedia site that keeps track of all the Atlantic 10 championships the Dukes have won over the years. And after 3 more this season, the Dukes ladies swimmers have 44 individual Atlantic 10 champions all time. The men's program, which is no longer functioning, had 23. So, pretty cool considering they haven't been competing in a while. But yeah, it's cool. If you go to Duquesne Dukes on Wikipedia, you can find a list. And it's pretty neat. I've actually been updating it myself a little bit since I've seen the list, added the 3 for this year. And so the women will finish their swimming season, by the way, at Nationals, hopefully March 20th through March 22nd. The way the B cuts work, I believe, Rachel, unless you heard differently, is that they got to wait and see what kind of times may have pushed them out, for those who did an A cut, which would be automatic. Is that right?
And he was explaining those A cuts are like the world records. It's so hard to get into that. No Duquesne swimmer has been in that, but to have 5 in this season has been really remarkable. And he was so thrilled to talk about it. You could hear the pride he spoke with in his voice about this program.
All right. Well, we'll try to get Dave Sheets on. We're next week, by the way, Noah Buono, former Duquesne Dukes men's player and the color commentator for the Dukes basketball team this season. In his debut, he's been alongside Ray Goss. I think he's done a pretty good job. I like Noah. He's going to be on next week, so we'll get the color commentator from the men's side to join us. But Rachel, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for bringing Tony on too. Zim, really cool for you to pop on, man. Thank you. And of course, man, for Rudy and Nick, I'm Bob Healy III. I want to give a chance for final thoughts on all things Dukes. We'll go with Rudy first.
Well, we're running out of games, guys, and hate to say it, but we're kind of mediocre on the men's team, and we got. But you mentioned that we're not that far away from the Dayton, so maybe there's hope. And the women, the rotations, which Nick and Rachel brought up, is essential. And getting that together, and just being more consistent scoring from the other people not named McConnell. And you got to say the same thing about the men's team a little bit. You got to come back and say that these guys have to do it as a team. Before last week, I mentioned we don't start 5, we start 8. I said, well, thinking about that, no, that's not no, we start 10. So that's basically what I got to say about that. We got to do it from pulling each other's bootstraps. Each individual person has to be accountable, and that's all I got to say.
Nick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go away from the serious talk and go to NIL shirt designs. I think they can be better. I think they could be more creative. I think they could relate to the fans a little more. Uh, if there's any way at all that I can get involved in just giving them ideas, I feel like we can come up with some better shirts. I mean, they're all just basically the player's face and maybe a nickname, maybe their name on it. We can get better outcomes. That's all I have on this one.
I can't disagree with you too much, Nick, because I looked at some of them. I wanted to get one for Rozier, who's one of my majors and a great kid and a good student and just a good dude. And one of my favorite player. So I just got the D with Rozier on the back. I'm like, I'm just going to get a regular jersey because I couldn't really decide. They're a little, yeah, they're a little strange. Okay, Rachel, Tony, final thoughts on anything Duquesne Dukes?
Well, I'll piggyback on Nick. There was a fan, a New Yorker, came to the game and he had a Meg McConnell sweatshirt, which was neat to see. But, as far as the basketball season goes, March is upon us and anything can happen. It's March Madness. So I'm hoping these teams are every little loss that they've had will turn into a lesson, right? So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. And I just am so grateful to be part of this Duquesne program again and welcome back with open arms from the athletic department, and just so proud of where the program on all athletic fronts has come. So really proud to be a Duke.
Yeah, the same regards. Like, she got back into the game with the broadcasting, brought me back, brought up my son's back, my son to the games, and just it's a great community, great family, and we're blessed to have the ability to go back and see some faces and to do this, and we're thankful.
Yeah. And I think when you're in it as the players, you don't realize how much you should be embracing it because you're in the grind. But now we've been so far removed. It's been really a pleasure to be back part of it. And we're go Dukes,
Go Dukes. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both for joining us. For Rudy, for Nick, I'm Bob. Guys, we'll see you next week. Shoo, shoo, rah, rah.